Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's Wilmington Biz Talk. I'm Vicki Janowski, editor of the Greater Wilmington Business Journal. And today we'll be talking with Carson Porter, executive director of the Wilmington Hammerheads Youth Soccer, about a major sports complex facility that's going to be starting underway soon in the region. But first, a quick note from our sponsor, Cape Fear Realtors.
Hello, I'm Ann Gardner, CEO of Cape Fear Realtors. Realtors support this program's efforts to connect our community in meaningful dialogue with actionable insights. Realtors are dedicated professionals who build strong, resilient communities and businesses. Work with someone you can trust. Work with a realtor. Learn more at capefear.realtor.
This week, a long-awaited sports complex project that's been discussed for years, ever since the city parks bond was passed to help fund it, got a major boost when City Council approved an agreement from nCino for a $1.3 million agreement that would add to the long-term sponsorship of the Port City Sports Complex. Under the agreement, it will be called nCino Sports Park, and it will house numerous athletic fields that will support not only local youth who are in sports programs, but also, which is why we wanted to have this focus on this week's Biz Talk, bring in potentially a large number of visitors and visiting families. So to give us an update today about where that project stands, what the next steps are, and the potential impact of it is Carson Porter, who's executive director of the Wilmington Hammerheads Youth Program. And that organization will also be managing the park under the agreement with the city. So Carson's going to share a little bit about how that'll work as well. But Carson, thanks for joining us today and spending your lunchtime with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun to be on. I'm really excited.
So we've done a couple stories this week about that sponsorship agreement with nCino, but that was part of a much larger project and price tag for the overall construction of this. So can you just take us back a couple of steps, Carson, and tell us how this all came together and what the Hammerheads' role was in it?
Yeah, sure. It's become a fun story to tell because I'm really proud of it, because it's been some challenges and some problem solving along the way. So, really quickly in 2016, thanks to the citizens in our community, we voted to approve a larger parks bond. I think it was near $40 million. And you see a lot of that going on into the North Waterfront Park. And we were a secondary piece of that. So $10 million was earmarked for the construction of a new soccer park, which was great. And as we went through the process, or as the city went through the process, our current soccer park, which is close to 70 acres that we work on every single day, as we speak, we provided an opportunity. And as we went down this road, there was a lot of positives of donating the land that we owned as a private nonprofit organization to the city of Wilmington, and allowing the city of Wilmington to put that bond money straight into it, because we were able to cut a lot of costs, mainly the purchase of land, which would have had a big dent into the $10 million. So that $10 million was able to go straight to work into this park. Obviously for the city, they feel really good about the fact that can happen. And for us as a youth sports organization, we would never have $10 million. So the idea of providing our piece of land and building it, and then the final piece of it is that this is going to be a community park. And for me and some of the city leadership, we're more than happy, and we think and we know that this can be a city park. There's enough space, there's enough fields. So it just became a real win-win for everybody. So current fields plus $10 million to improve those current fields and add new fields and make it a city park was kind of the formula. And then the final piece of it, which I think is really awesome and we're really excited about, was having nCino a part of it, because what nCino's support was able to do was give us some things that we weren't able to get in that $10 million number. And it's crazy because we say constantly $10 million is a lot of money. But when you're building a sports park, $10 million, we could spend more. Let's just put it that way. So nCino came to the plate with some private funding, and that's really the formula: a land donation from our organization, bond money from the taxpayers in the city of Wilmington, nCino coming in with private funding. So a sports community with teamwork as kind of the theme, and getting this all done is something that I'm really excited about and really proud of.
And since we're talking dollars and cents, then, well, first of all, Carson, when is construction supposed to start, or when, if everything goes well, would the sports park open?
Yeah, we're at 90% design right now, and looking towards August as the target date to break ground. So we'll start taking bids in the late spring, and look for August to be that time where we'll break ground. It's likely to be a 12-month build. So we'll look at summer of 2022 to be our target date to have events out there. And it's interesting and problem solving go into this, because we have this existing park. So we're also still working on trying to keep some of those fields available while we build the other soccer park, which is important for, selfishly for our club to continue to do some practices and some games out there. So more work to be done, more problem solving, but August to start, and a 12-month build to have the final product.
And on another problem solving possibly end, is the funding all in place and good to go for the full build out of the park? Or is that something the city is going to have to continue to figure out a funding gap, or potentially go to other private sources like they did with nCino?
We're pretty much there on our initial build. So nCino, kind of took us to that place. So yes, kind of directly to your answer, I think there are contingencies and some things that we hope to be able to add to the park as the project goes on, and as we hit budget numbers. But the initial build is there. I think we have some other thoughts that I'm excited about: a walking trail, which isn't in the original build, but is a contingency, and something I think that we're all sort of keen on getting done. A playground. So these are some things, some bells and whistles, some bonuses that we want to do. But to answer your question, yes, everything's there, the funding's there, and we're ready to go.
And I do want to take a minute to point out, if you have questions for Carson while we have him here today about the park or the future plans for it, go ahead and post that in the Facebook live feed while we're here all together, and I'll pass them along. But the next question I was going to ask you, Carson, was the size, the scope of this. So Mayor Sappho, in his comments at City Council earlier this week, described this as, once it's open, going to be one of the largest sports or youth sports complexes like this in the state. Can you talk to a little bit about, is that true? Is this going to be a major asset, not just for the region, but for the state?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the sort of the scope of it is anything above 10 fields there are very few of, and so we're at 11. And it also kind of, to sort of move that into another conversation, is anything above 10 fields is oftentimes a check mark for these tournaments that come into it. So pre-construction, we're not there. We can't get certain tournaments into this complex. But that 10 number is kind of the magic number that takes us over the top to start talking about national events, regional events, people flying in from Chicago, out at Los Angeles, Dallas, into our community, and putting on these events. So yes, it is. It will be one of the biggest sports parks in the state, and also kind of what does that actually mean, and the positives that it does is that 10 is kind of the magic number to make sure that you can get a lot of these events going.
So what other types of tournaments besides soccer would the fields be able to accommodate?
Well, that's really limitless, and that's really the exciting part of it. So obviously, one of the things that as we build this out is it is going to be a sports park, and that's important for people to know and people to understand. So there will be, and really, to get even more specific, rectangle fields is kind of the talking point. So we won't have baseball, we won't have tennis, those types of things, but lacrosse, field hockey, rugby, these types of events are all on the table for us. So we'll be working with all the organizations in the city of Wilmington They have their content, just like I have contacts in soccer, and I sort of know the landscape of the soccer tournament business. We'll be reaching out to the lacrosse guys and gals and sort of discussing all those types of things. And we'll be creating a master schedule so that we can build this calendar to accommodate that. So when there's a major lacrosse tournament, we're going to make sure that, you know, that's the priority, and that they have the fields that they need and the things that they need, and we'll just sort of move on. And again, it's a big teamwork piece of this whole thing, but it's limitless, and so hopefully a lot of events with a lot of different sports that get into our city.
I see Hughes Warren has mentioned ultimate Frisbee as well. That's one of the potential uses for the fields?
100%. Yeah. I mean, ultimate Frisbee is, I think it's got, whenever I don't know much, but when I think of ultimate Frisbee, I think a lot of fun and a really cool sport and a social sport. But absolutely that type of concept. And then also you can talk about all different levels. So I think, you know, I do want to say that, you know, very much the focus of the build and a lot of the talking points were on youth sports. And I think that's still the most important. I mean, the children in our community and what they're going, you know, what they learn in sports, and to be able to offer this park and for them to spend that time together is the most important. It really is, in my opinion. But then beyond that, we can talk about just some great events like a ultimate Frisbee college event or an ultimate Frisbee, you know, adult event. And again, I'm confident we can fit all this stuff in and excited to do it. So absolutely, ultimate Frisbee, let's go.
So is it predominantly local sports leagues, or is this predominantly a place that will be attracting you know, out of town tournaments?
So it's gonna check both those boxes. So I think what we need for the kids in our community, we need more sports fields. So that's kind of where this all started, is how do we improve that experience? Again, you know, for us at the Cape Fear Soccer Park right now, that will be the nCino Sports Park. If you went out there today, the fields are very functional. They're okay, you know, but they certainly can be better. So this improvement is much needed for the kids and the families in our community. And then beyond that, you know, yes, these events that we want to draw, we want people to come from all over the country to come to these. And it's never been hard to get people to come to our community. People were coming to our community sometimes in spite of the facilities that maybe we have, and now they're going to come to our community, you know, not only because they love being in Wilmington, but also as part of it is this great facility that they can spend their time at. So we're gonna knock it out in sort of every which way. And the other thing, just to finish, is, you know, Monday through Friday, which is not, you know, that's not when these events are happening. That's a really important time for this park, because that's where the kids are finishing school and they're coming out to practice, and they're having those times where, again, they're creating relationships, they're learning about commitment, they're learning about teamwork. So there's a business side of it, which I'm really excited to talk about, but then there's also this community piece of it that I think is really important. And that's you'll probably see that often in Monday through Friday, when it's a busy night out at the nCino Sports Park.
You mentioned some of the fields that weren't included in the planning process. When you mentioned tennis courts and baseball fields, why were those not a part of the design?
I think it just comes down to that idea that we just can't do it. We can't do everything at once. And I want to, you know, there was a priority on sports fields. There was a priority on youth sports. And I don't want to make it sound like that's more important than the other sports. It just came down to, you know, this has got to be a focus, and we're going to try to knock this out in this build.
I don't think we've mentioned specifically where this is located, but this is off US 421. Believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually adjacent or former landfill land that's, you know, gone dormant, obviously. I asked that because I wonder, is there room to expand out there where the property is? So is there ability to add on additional fields if funding comes in the future, or different types of sports fields later?
Yes. So I think the just kind of round the numbers up. The land is 70 acres. And roughly before right now, again, if you go out there right now, 35 acres of those are developed. We're likely to use about 40 of those 40 of those new acres, I guess you could call them, for the first initial build. So we'll have a whole other quarter. If you're thinking, if you can follow me there, we'll have a whole other quarter that will still be available to add on to it. So I think I'd love for there to be more fields. And I think what we'll just do as a community and keep an eye on and monitor and track is, we want to outgrow this thing too. We've outgrown our community fields right now. So this is why we need these fields. But now with the nCino Sports Park, we want to outgrow these fields and then give us an opportunity to, go to the city or go to some private supporters to say we need more. So yes is the answer with all that I threw out there.
And let's talk a little bit about those potential visitors. So y'all are already running fairly large size soccer tournaments that come in. Can you tell us a little bit what those two existing ones are and how many people they bring in already to the area?
Sure. We run a youth soccer tournaments in November and May, all age groups, really starting with 10-year-olds up to 18-year-olds. If you think about it, the participation is kind of a bell curve. I think 11, 12, 13 is when our numbers are really, really high. We use Ogden Park, we use Veterans Park, we use the Cape Fear Soccer Park, and we don't have any more field space to go to. So we have to turn teams down and say thanks but no thanks. And so we do about there's roughly 200 to 300 teams in those tournaments. So we're looking at 600 teams annually, and it's time for another to analyze those with the CVB. But a couple years back, the number was about close to a $10 million economic impact, with people staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, and just spending the weekend in our community. I think which we love and we want to support. And I would just say, for me, one of the things that I'm excited about is those tournaments are great, but this is also an opportunity to do different tournaments, just as as the ultimate Frisbee was brought up, but also even in the soccer world. I think we want to step up our game and do some tournaments where college recruiting becomes involved, because it's a big part of it. So a lot of the kids in our community that are playing in our club want to go to play college soccer. And so we go to these big events, and we go to the events where the college coaches are, because that's a big influence. So I'm confident and I'm excited to bring the college coaches, to our event. And with those college coaches and those events, so too do the teams and around the country follow. So it's an exciting time to expand on these two tournaments. And right now they're doing really well. And so we're just, as I said to CC, one of your reporters, we're trying to go from good to great. So we're in a pretty healthy tournament business now, but we can do a lot more.
So how competitive does it get amongst cities that are vying for these tournaments? I know any of our readers or viewers watching right now who have children's demographic and on travel teams, you probably know this inside out, and you're traveling every weekend to Myrtle Beach or elsewhere. And so this is your world that you probably do on a weekly basis on those travel teams. I'm not there yet. We'll see when that age demographic hits what we're traveling around for. But I do hear from people who, every weekend, depending on the level of sports their kids are playing, are packing up and staying in hotels and eating at restaurants with the team and going to, I do hear Myrtle Beach a lot, that they have built up their sports complexes for those travel tournaments. So I'm just kind of curious in terms of that sector, that industry, how competitive does it get for bidding on sports tournaments? Yeah,
I think that's a good question. I think it is competitive. I think kind of going back to that 10 field minimum, that eliminates a lot of communities. And so that's, so we've never been a part of this competition until now, or going to be a part of this competition. So it is competitive. I think, obviously people want events during those warm weather times and so forth and so on. I think one of the things that we'll balance is we have this influx of people coming in to our community because of our great beaches and spring and summer. So we have to balance that with where we place our tournaments throughout the year. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd like for a lot of our tournaments to happen in October, November, December, where you still got some nice weather, but if you live in Columbus, Ohio, you can't play soccer. So, those are some of the things that we'll be thinking about. And at the same time, our May event, which is happening in just a couple of weeks, I mean, people are going to be really excited to be here. They're going to play their soccer game, and then they're going to go to the beach, or they're going to sit by the water and have lunch. So it's competitive. I like our chances, I guess I'll say it that way. And I think it's also really about relationships, probably in a lot of things. I think I'll be excited to call, my colleagues and the people that I work with to tell them all about this and to tell them why this needs to be a stop. And I think they'd be pretty excited to be here.
Okay, Carson, and just to end us on this note, so nCino Sports Park, so you said construction is expected to break ground this fall, correct?
Late summer,
Summer?
hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep pushing. Late summer, early fall.
Do you all yet have anything planned for how to use it as soon as it opens, or a big opening for it, or is it still in the works?
Great question. I mean, I've sat up and thought of all kinds of crazy ideas, but no, we don't have anything planned. I'd love to incorporate a couple, like we talked, a couple of different levels, a couple of different things, a couple of different ideas. I'd love to have UNC Wilmington men's and women's soccer out there as an example, playing a game with another college in the area. I'd love that. I'd obviously love for our kids to benefit from it, from all different sports. So maybe something, a day, a special day. The other thing that's kind of, way out there, but we're going to have permanent lights out at nCino Sports Park. And that's a big deal because, that's not always the case. And sometimes we're playing under these lights that are, the highway lights that you'll drive by late at night. And it's not great. So the midnight madness, that let the college basketball players do to get all the kids out there running around playing, probably not at midnight, but maybe at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, where we can keep them up for a couple extra hours. Those are some fun things definitely it'll be a fun thing to think about.
Well, Carson, thanks so much for spending some time with us and giving us an update on this. And obviously we'll be covering it as well from the Business Journal side, just like we did this week. If you missed today's talk or the beginning of it, we'll recap it in our 4 o'clock newsletter. And if you have missed any of the other recent episodes, including last week's update on the airport terminal expansion, you can find all of those on your podcast streaming channels or on our website at WilmingtonBizTalk.com. So thanks everyone for watching, and we will tune in next week.
Thanks.